All right, you wonderful freedom-loving boys and girls. Welcome to another episode 4 to be exact, of CLS After Dark. Episode 4, season 2. I guess I should have said it that way. But this is CLS After Dark. I'm your host, Mark. And then that other just beautiful-looking human being right next to me, that's George, a.k.a. Triple X. Cha-cha-cha.
Cha-cha-cha.
Yeah. Hey, this is part 2 of the New Order. And if I seem a little distraught or discombobulated, the honest truth is I'm not 100% sure where to go with this episode tonight. As I was just saying to George before we went live, there is so much going on, and that's by design. It's so much going on. You can't stay focused. You can't fixate on one target, suppressive fire or direct fire on it. So you can, get rid of that and move on to the next objective or the next thing. We're being inundated. We're being drowned in events that are happening in real time. So the me and yous in the world can't keep up with it because we're just tax cattle. We're just, what the video that came out earlier, the behind the scenes video where they're just talking about if you're not part of the club, you're just cannon fodder. You're just whatever the word they had for us. I mean, and this is the truth, I think. And now that could be by design, or it could be just inadvertent. And because we've entered into, and this technology is pervasive, you and I can talk like this, citizen journalists going out there and finding and exposing graft and corruption and this, that, and the other. So we're just going to kind of circle the wagons back to the first episode. We're going to expand it a little bit more, our scope, because now we'll talk about some global events and affairs. But before we do, without any further ado, as we go into it, I'm going to let George, George, people have seen you before, but give a little brief introduction. And as always, I've got to get my Steve jokes ready. So go ahead, George.
Please. I have to ask for forgiveness because I'm traveling, so I didn't get a chance to work on my rim shot with the little symbol. So Mark could put that in his little AI for after he's done with his dad jokes. But anyway, my background, military, law enforcement, working with Mark at the agency. And then I've been instructing for the agency, DIA, Department of State, a lot of different areas, and civilians, executive protection, driving, and firearms training, and a lot of tactical stuff. And that's me in a nutshell.
His nickname is Triple X. We gave that to him over one of those locations. Y'all know what we're talking about, but I don't know if we can he can specifically talk about it. I'm not really sure if I can, but everybody knows what we're talking about anyway. But he got the nickname over there, or maybe that was his nickname, but I heard it, or we watched that Triple X movie, and I'm like, dude, that guy so wants to be you, George. Like, that guy wants to be you in so many ways, and then so Triple X kind of stuck for his nickname. So, what is that actor's name, by the way?
I think that one was Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel. Yeah. Okay. Hey, we're going to kick it off. But as always, because these are dark times, boys and girls, so we need a little bit of love, a little bit of humor, a little bit of humanity in our day-to-day. So here we go. And and I'll get to the chat in a second. But also, in the chat, but if you watch this later, or if you're watching it live, go back out and leave a comment in the real video. Tell me what you guys think about the dad jokes. I like them. Maybe I should start doing them in all of my centerline, my gear videos. I don't know, but because they're dad jokes, and dad jokes can kind of offend some people who don't like dads, I guess, or something. But we're doing it at the CLS After Dark. Here we go. First joke of. Oh, I just saw the second joke, the ending joke. They're both horrible. Here we go. Thank you, Steve, for always just making me smile. Here we go. The first French fries weren't cooked in France, George?
No.
Yeah, they were cooked in Greece. Oh, he got it. Yes. Oh, you did have it. That was awesome.
You too.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah, the first French fries, they weren't cooked in France. They were cooked in Greece. Oh my God. Just so freaking stupid. So stupid. You really had me. I thought you didn't have and then you were doing it while I was, BSing.
I figured one way or another I would be innovative and find it. So
yeah, well, you are that creative. That's why you are Triple X. That's why you're that guy. That's how I know you are. And then fill in the blanks. All right, here we go. Real quickly, shout out to everybody, and then we're going to get jumping right into it. We got Gene with a big woo-woo. Snowshoe. Nice to see you, Snowshoe Dave. Thanks for checking in. Learn Me Something was probably trying to say, like, hey, guys, it's showtime. Why aren't you live? Get off your asses, So thanks, Learn Me Something. Glad you're here. Greg Harriman. Hey, Greg, nice to see you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming in, Greg. Appreciate it. Oh, I went a little bit too far. Man, I'm telling you, all these controls are different now. Gene. It's all done to control. Yeah, Roger. And then we've got NCI Preps. I don't think we've seen you before, NCI Preps, but howdy. Good to see you here. C Saline checking in from Minnesota. Learn Me Something with some kind of laughter smile, probably about that rim shot George just did right there. And then Gene's chiming in. You need to dad joke Mark versus Gimli. Yeah, he probably has a lot of good dad jokes too. Good one, Gene. Yeah, we got to get Gimli back around, and maybe we'll have. But see, these aren't my original dad jokes, so I can't go head to head like a dance off with them. These aren't my jokes. But thanks, Gene. That's a good point. Gimli would have a bunch. Hey, as always, if you got questions or comments, I'm looking up here at you in the camera. Then I got to look down here and try to focus on George. And then over on this quadrant is the commentary. Leave a comment if you have a question or if there's a topic of interest that you want us to kind of at least address or try to answer. And so on that note, again, thanks for everybody here's live. Thanks for everybody in the chat. Really appreciate it. So as we step into this, I guess I'll start this off and we'll see where George wants to go with this here. I meant it when I said it at the beginning. I'm not 100% sure where to go with this. There are so many things taking place. The more I keep watching daily events, and I do, and a matter of fact, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got 7 tabs open that I could reference and bring up for everybody to see. I thought about writing down all of the unsolved quote unquote mysteries or murders or, nefarious or, strange things. Imagine Nord Stream 2, the fact that you can't say certain words on this platform if you're watching on ScrewTube, for example. And then if you do, you get demonetized. The fact that we have to have a civilian company, think about this. A civilian company, not part of the government at all. Their money is the profits they make off of the task, the job, the service they provide, that works with veterans to help veterans process their VA claims because the VA is so broken. Like, I don't know if maybe you work and you think about it from your business, or maybe you run your own business, or you're, tied into your business. So you're thinking, like the logistics and all these costs. For a civilian company to be profitable, to have employees and brick and mortar, they got to work out, and to do all these things to assist veterans with their VA claims. What does that tell you about how broken the VA is and how much the VA gives zero shits about veterans, and the government gives zero shits about me and you? I'm not even going to sit anymore going forward in life. I'm not even going to talk about ICE operations or this or that, because we are being led into the direction where we are just being played, where we are the useful idiots. It's us. It's blue team versus red team, when the real team has a color you and I will never see and we don't understand. We're arguing over the scraps at Longshank's table. So that was a general way to jump into this. I'm going to turn it over to George here. And hey, George, so that little intro, does that make you think of anything in particular that you want to bring up initially? Otherwise, I'm going to move into some geopolitical things, but I kind of want to let you have the first opening salvo, if you will, here tonight. Go ahead, sir.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff that we didn't cover last week just because of how things were going. But I'll tell you right now, this week, I pretty much have stayed off of Instagram as much as possible. Even talking to my other half the other morning, doing coffee over FaceTime, even on her feed, which she doesn't watch any of this stuff that I watch. All her stuff is about boutiques and housewives and stuff like that. It's got to the point to where if you are not conforming to whatever, you're being kicked off of shows, all this stuff is affecting her business, not because she's getting on there saying anything. It's just people are so scared right now to go out and spend money, buy an outfit, do anything
Yeah.
because of what is happening now in social media, the government, and the uncertainty of anything is really messing with people just in their everyday life just because of social media. And her, as she was explaining to me this morning, somebody on their page said, "Hey, I watched the Kid Rock halftime show and I didn't watch the other halftime show." And actually had a friend sit there and blast her and basically say that she was racist, all this stuff. I mean, she's known the lady for God knows how long. And then, that lady sent her a private message and go, "You basically just told me I don't have the own right to watch whatever I want to watch on TV. I'm a huge Kid Rock fan. This is what I wanted to watch during the halftime show. I didn't really care about somebody singing in Spanish and me having to read subtitles for 15 minutes." And then that lady went back on and deleted her negative comment, you know. But in reality, right now, it just shows you how emotionally charged people are just because they look at this and somebody posts something out of free speech that they don't agree with. And the first thing they want to do is be that keyboard warrior. And I think right now it's really messing up a lot of people. I think mentally, emotionally, and then as we all know, when the inside starts going down, the outside starts going down. And I just think it's almost like cancer, for your brain. You stop thinking for yourself, you're getting scared, there's unknowns, and the people who aren't used to an unknown, like people who've been like what we've done, hey, it's an unknown. Guess what? When I get there, I'm going to make it a known one way or another. It doesn't mean that we're not scared, but we're kind of conditioned for that. The people who are not conditioned for that fall apart. And that's what I'm starting to see a lot of right now.
I think you're seeing to that point right there. And I'll circle back to something else you said, but just right there, we're seeing that within. So if you're from America, if you're watching this from America, I can only speak to America. I'm not living in Germany or Australia or, or any other place right now. I can't speak to your societal ills. We can look at the news and get a snapshot, but you live it, right? But that's to George's point right there. When you just look around, you can see, and your day to day here in the States, is it the same? If you can remember what life was like in the before times, pre the the human conditioning, social conditioning test that was 2020 2019 timeframe. If you go back into before times, was society like this? What was society like before Barack Obama? What was society like before the Bushes? You can almost kind of point to the Bushes. That's where, if you take it to like George Bush, Junior, I'll use that kind of terminology, the junior. That's when I think we really started to see all these like very direct political attacks, and then Al Gore with the hanging Chads in Florida and this and that. And just even bringing this up, I realize again, this is all part of what it wants. It wants a blue team, red team. This is bread and circuses, type of moment. But I think the negative implications of that, George, to your effect or to your point, you see it every day in society around you. Just people are just rude. People are really violent or, about to snap. There's no social discourse anymore. Like you just said, hey, I like Kid Rock, I'm not saying I do, but I'm just an example. Like, yeah, dude, I don't want to watch this Bad Bunny guy. And by the way, and I didn't watch that because only 2 days before did I realize it was the Super Bowl, and I don't give a shit about sports ball anymore. I really don't. And I had a goal, a bucket list to go see a baseball game in every baseball stadium in America. And I'm about halfway there, but I don't even care about that anymore. So there's a lot of us who don't care about that stuff, but there still are people who do care about it. Hey, no, I want to watch football. That's my thing. Or I like Kid Rock, or I don't know who this Bad Bunny guy is, and I don't want to be subjected. Like you said, George, I don't want to be subjected to that. And how is that suddenly you're evil? Look, from what I've heard, and this is all I can say is I've only heard it because I didn't watch either of those programs at all. But it was very like, what's the word I'm trying to say here? Themes of, just very vulgar things that your kids shouldn't be subjected to unless you think subjecting your children is like to these events is what you should do, which is the same with people taking their children to, these gay pride parades and everything. There's a segment of the gay community is like, no, kids shouldn't be here, and drag racing or drag stories for, no, all of this is wrong. And those voices, to your point, George, they get shut down, they get called all kinds of names, and all this. So, we're building to this point where if you don't offer fealty to the, to the new thing, to whatever that is, whatever flag we're flying today or whatever the thing we're outraged about, you get attacked. That's what happened in Minneapolis. Was it earlier this week or the end of last week? I think it was the end of last week. Some yoga studio, a yoga studio.
Yeah.
You want to, yeah, there, I'm setting you up. Go with that and add a little bit more to it.
Well, I mean, this is what I don't understand. It's a small business. If they don't want what other people put on the outside of their business for anti-ice, and then they're going to come in there and basically tell the owner, yeah, you better put that shit back up. I'm going to say that owner handled it pretty well, because I know how I would have handled it. I would have namaste'd everybody with my fucking fist and then drug them right outside. And then that would have been the end of it, because they're not paying for that brick and mortar. They're not paying the bills that guy has to pay for. And I'll give you another example that I read, and it happened a couple of months ago. A couple went on vacation. I'll make this quick. And they owned a coffee shop in Seattle where a majority of, I would say red-blooded Americans go and have their coffee. Well, they went on vacation for a week. The manager was like, you know what we're doing? We're putting up gay flags. We're taking down the American flag. We're going to have all this stuff. And while they were on vacation, one of their customers called and said, hey, nobody's going back to your place. We don't know what happened, and sent them pictures. This guy and his wife cut their vacation short and flew back, came in that night, took down the gay pride flag, put back up the United States flag, came through and ripped everything down. And the manager and their cronies came in the next day and was like, walked to the owner and said, who the F took down our flag and this and this? And he fired every one of them. Him and his wife worked. They got on social media and said, hey, look, we're back. We're sorry. Free coffee for the first week when everyone comes back. And everybody came back. They didn't want the free coffee. They just wanted a place where they could go and not get shit thrown down their throat of being like, you don't like gay people, you don't like trans people, you don't like this, you don't like that. And if you don't come here and get coffee. And these people they're not putting money into a business. If you want to open up a gay pride coffee shop, by all means, go ahead. Take your money and do it. Don't try to sabotage somebody else who's been working hard to build something and a reputation and everything that you're working with, those connections with your customers, and basically give them the finger because it doesn't work with what your ideology or your opinions are. You took a job there. You're getting a paycheck from somebody who's telling you, hey, don't show up here wearing that shit. You're going to wear this uniform. You're going to serve like this, and don't treat people a certain way, and don't treat them if they come in and like, hey, I want coffee or I want this. And you think that they should get every other flavor underneath the sun, and you think they don't want it because they don't like trans.
Yeah.
It's just one of these things where we're at a point now to where, and this goes for anybody, hey, I should have free speech to say this, but you said something I didn't like, F free speech. Or, hey, he has a gun, I don't like guns, but then when somebody tells me, hey, you can carry a gun to fight these guys, I'm like, ooh, Second Amendment. We're very blessed to live in this country.
Damn right.
super blessed to be in this country. And yes, everyone should be entitled to their opinion, and that's great. Everybody should be entitled to protest if they want to protest lawfully. But the moment you start getting so emotionally charged and thinking that, hey, the problem is we haven't held people to consequences. And I mean all the way up the fucking ladder. So when we don't hold people to consequences, people are gonna be like, I'll do whatever I want. And then the moment they run into somebody who's like, yeah, no, then all of a sudden that person, we want to label people when this stuff should have been handled a long time ago and be like, hey, it should be put out straight across the board. If I was President Trump, I'd have a national little thing. I wouldn't even do me. I'd be like, Bill Clinton, hey, let's get rid of the illegals. Hillary Clinton, let's get rid of the illegals. Obama, let's get rid of the illegals. And play every video and every picture of them wherever they were at during the time when this happened. And then go, where was all the violence? Everybody who wants to get involved now, you want to interfere, you want to do this, this is how we're going to handle it. You're getting arrested and you're being charged federally, not locally. And make your federal prosecutors start earning their fucking money. When people realize,
unfortunately, don't go too far astray. You've given a bunch of us a bunch of items right there, but just on that last one. But that's why, look, we're entering into a new order, and part of the new order is new forms of warfare, and the judicial, the legal, like what you're alluding to here. That's a new style of warfare. A certain group of individuals can get away with pretty much anything. I mean, and somebody say, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Just go and just do news searches and just look through it and see, why is it that every illegal alien who commits a crime is listed as a white guy? And this isn't made up. There are individuals spending their time going through the records, and this is happening all the time. Well, there's something nefarious behind that. And whoever that individual is, to Joe's point, if that's an elected official or a government official, whether that's your, local, state, federal, no, that person needs to be terminated. That's obviously intentional, and there's a reason behind it, because these things are on one side of the aisle. You're being fed a diatribe. You're being propagandized. I mean, we all are to some extent, greater or lesser in this society, both Western and otherwise. We're all being propagandized, and the propaganda is, it's okay to do these things. And then back to your point, George. And so the individual who's like, no, I have a Second Amendment right. Matter of fact, let's just stop saying a Second Amendment right. I have a God-given right, and you don't have to believe in God. The point is that you, as a human being, there's a higher divinity, there's a higher rule of law, and you don't have to bow down, kiss anybody's feet. You can say what you want to say. You can ask questions of the people who are stealing your tax dollars. You can defend your hearth and home. You don't need anyone's permission for that. Yet every passing day, and we've seen it, in the conservative movement as of late, the MAGA movement. Oh, yeah, well, you shouldn't bring a gun to a protest. Hey, dude, I'll bring a gun wherever the hell I want to bring a gun, because I have a right to defend myself. Now, if I go down there, and to George's point, we already have laws. If I go down there and I use that illegally, or I start threatening people or conducting myself in a legal manner, we don't need any more laws. I'm working my way back to something you said, George. No, let's just start enforcing the laws that are already on the books. Hey, I don't care how famous, wealthy, powerful you are. You just you just PDF filed, somebody. No, you're going to jail. Well, but it'll destroy our economy. If our economy is based on that kind of evil, then our economy needs to be torn down and built back up. And yep, as an American, as a human being, if that puts me as a small business owner in an even more difficult situation, if that's what I have to suck up in order to make things right, I'm willing to do it. But on the other hand, is giving away all of our tax dollars to everybody else in the world except Americans, their own citizens that they take the money from. So I don't know if you saw what I was doing, George. You kind of were, that's where you were, and then you went over here, and I was trying to address them all, but we're not even doing any of those things right now. We're not holding anybody accountable. And with each passing day, I saw a meme. It's the Gulf of America, the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. And it was really kind of cool map, kind of like artistry. It looked like a little bit of a map type of thing. But instead of Gulf of whatever, it said the Gulf of no one's been arrested yet. No one has. We're sitting here talking about this again. I don't even know where to go because this is the new order. There's something else afoot, and they don't give a crap about me and you. We're just tax cattle to them. Give us your money. I just had to provide more documentation for my Minnesota state taxes and employment. How much I paid, out in employment and the taxes I took in from the state of Minnesota. And this is the Trump administration. That's part of the big new bill. And I won't say anything more because I don't want to mislabel or, I don't want to misrepresent somebody else. But there was a comment or two and like, yeah, and you got to do this and you got to do that. And I'm like, okay, how much more does that cost me? And what's the point of all that? I'm already providing you all of that information in my tax filing. It's already right there. The truth is they want to narrow down an area that they want to focus on that puts like me and George, for example. They want to be able to say, hey, Mark specifically said this and claimed this. Now let's see what George said. And if George doesn't say the same thing Mark just said, we'll go after both of them and take all their money away and their assets. This is about milking the middle class. And I don't think there's a middle class anymore. I apologize, America. This is milking the lower class. Well, I guess there is a middle class. The middle class is you have to make 6 figures or more. That's the new middle class in America. And it's all designed to make sure that they keep getting that money from us, the tax slaves, the tax cattle. We're just like, the humans in the Matrix. I mean, although it doesn't make any sense, like, let's spend all this money and energy or this machinery and resources and energy to milk human beings for their, like a battery. I'm like, you just spent more energy than you would get. But anyway, I digress. Just a little weird thing. One of my weirdest things about the Matrix, I understood, like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not efficient. But the point I'm making here is just like that. That's all we are. We're just numbers. We're just names, in a pod someplace. And you have to do everything the government wants. And then you don't even get to question what the government does with your money. Matter of fact, and let me just finish my rant. I'll turn it over to you. And we're seeing this, and we're seeing how we're being conditioned along these lines because, why are there so many auditor videos out there? Look, if there's only just a handful of bad cops, why are there so many auditor videos? We just saw a major news story just 2 days ago. A sheriff didn't even know the 3 branches of the government and didn't know where he fell into. He had to ask multiple times for the question to be repeated. And he even said, like, I don't know what that is. And you're the sheriff?
North Carolina.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, you want to just jump in on that? My point just being is we're being conditioned, and that's what ICE is. These shootings were bound to happen. That's what's going to happen when you bring emotionally charged individuals, put them into, it's realism. You put everybody in close proximity to each other, limited resources, anger, all these things going on. There is bound to be some form of violence. So when certain violence takes place, perpetuated or perpetrated, we'll focus on that, and that'll be all over the news media. But a trans shooter yet again in Canada, and they don't want to talk about it. They want to hide everything and they want to obfuscate because it goes against the messaging, but because they can't ignore it because this guy just killed like 8 people or something like that. I don't quote me. I only saw a snippet of it, and then look at all the other trans related shootings that have taken place in America and how they've tried to hide all that or push it under the bus, or under the rug when it happens, because it doesn't fit the narrative. And George, in this role, shut up. And you nailed it. Go back, look at all of your quote unquote favorite presidents and look where they were on immigration and look what they would say publicly. How come no one was pissed off about that? How come they didn't, riot and do things back then? Right. It's a serious question. Why didn't people riot when Obama did it and Clinton did it? Why didn't people get upset when, all the mainstream news anchors back during that period of time echoed those talking points? How come no one's holding them accountable and pointing fingers at them and protesting them? No, instead, you're going and protesting the local yoga studio because they didn't want to fly a flag or some flyer on the window of their business. which doesn't even mean they don't agree with your cause. They just like, I don't want that on my business. If that's how they want to run their business, that's how they run their business. George.
Well,
by the way,
I'm going to say, look at questions.
Well, George, Learn Me Something says he loves these Georgisms. So I just had to put that up there.
And then you need to start off with, because you meant to do it last week and we never made it. So in the words of the president, China.
Okay. Well, chime in what we just said, and then we'll rotate. And we're already at 30 minutes, which I had no idea. I mean, where did that 30 minutes go? But yeah, if you don't mind, address that kind of point I just made, which is in response to your comments, and then let's transition. Let's go into the international, the global events.
Well, I think when you talked about that sheriff, that's a joke. That unfortunately, that's where law enforcement gets voted in on the sheriffs, and people get what they get. I will tell you right now, where I live, our sheriff and our police department do not match up, because our new police chief weighs about 340 pounds. He's not built. He was handpicked by the mayor and city council. And who would want to go work for somebody who's like that, who can't pass a PT test, can't get out of their car, can't help defend anybody? But he's a puppet. He can be controlled. That's the big difference between police chiefs and sheriffs. That sheriff was voted in. That does not have a good history, but you know what? It's a mindset that it goes to, hey, no matter what I do, I vote Democrat. No matter what I do, I vote Republican. And I understand that line. I do. But if you sit there and say, hey, for the past 30 years, I've voted Democrat, you have to look in the mirror and go, has your life gotten any better or worse? Because if it's gotten worse, it isn't going to get better if you keep voting the same way. And I'd say the same thing about Republicans.
Yeah.
It's good just to take a step back and go, what do I think is going to be best for my community? If you can do that at the bottom line with your city councilman and everybody else like that, you're going to do a lot better for your community. Because we know the people who are up here that you're talking about, the people we can't see what color coats they're wearing, they're worried about themselves. They ain't worried about us. And if you start from the bottom and work up, at least you might be able to help your community. That's just me personally.
That's I don't know if that's the solution. Maybe the solution is just, do what you can in your backyard, and control that. That's your operating environment. Mm-hmm. But we're all citizens of this great country. And, I know it's going to be black-pilled, but the voting is a bunch of BS. I mean, we've had an election. I don't care what you think. We had an election stolen. We've maybe had multiple elections stolen. We've had political figures, assassinated, in the public eye. Think about Kennedy. Think about 2 attempts on Trump. Ronald Reagan. Now, some of that, and look, and I'm not saying all of these are MK Ultra CI. I'm not going down that road at all, because sometimes there's just crazy people who try crazy things, and there's violent people who are also crazy. So their crazy things involve violence, and a dog, or in my dream, a dog told me I need to kill this person because then Jodie Foster will fall in love with me. Again, that stuff does happen. That's reality. But when you start looking at kind of like these high profile events and what's taking place, well, here, let me ground it in a little different reality. Here's where I'm going with this. Ilhan Omar is still in office. I'll say it again. Ilhan Omar is still in office. That's not a racist comment. That's not a sexist comment. That's a common sense adult table question/comment/observation, whatever you want to call it. How in the hell is Ilhan Omar still in office? What country, what type of government, what kind of system do we operate in, do we live in, that we pay money into, that we support? Or, and if you're stupid like George and I, you support it, by putting your life in its hands, doing stupid things. We live in a system where we're not even capable of like immediately removing somebody who's done. I mean, she's broken the law, federal laws on so many levels. That's not, somebody, oh, you're going to get sued. Go ahead, sue me. Let's go to disclosure. Like, hey, you married your brother. You lied on federal documents. Your net worth went from $40,000 to $3 million. No. And then that clown, in this current administration, I screw up his name, and I'm glad I screwed it up. When that reporter asked him about the Epstein list, see, there it is. You're not supposed to say Epstein because the algorithm will, shadow ban you. What happened to Section 230? But it's a private company. Yeah, that's given, governmental protection. Section 230. It's supposed to be, this is the new public square. I get to say what I want to say, and you, by hosting it, you've agreed to host it, and you've agreed to that no one can sue you for what I say, but then that gave you the ability to censor what I say. And no one's, and our government isn't holding anyone accountable. They're totally ignoring that, all these heinous crimes that have taken place and these events. Recent report, Karen Bass, ordered people to fudge the documents so it didn't make her look as bad and put the blame on the fire department. How is that person still in office? These are serious adult. How is that person still in office? Life is so tough as it is. If you're a normal human being and you've got a family or a business, or, you work a badass, blue collar job, man, you don't have time for this stuff. That's why you do want your sports ball, and I don't want to be a tax slave, and, give me a break. That middle-class dream is dead, and everybody, see, and there's another thing where how we're all being pit against each other. Young kids, oh man, I can't afford, I'm still living with my parents. I can't afford this. And then you have a whole bunch of people saying, what a bunch of weak, wishy, man, it's the truth. You're working a job. There's no way you can go out there right now and afford to buy a car, a house, 5 to 10 or 40 acres. That isn't somebody. Okay, sure. Some of those people are complaining, but the reality is it's so difficult, and we've intentionally made it that difficult. We're not doing anything to reduce our deficit. We're spending even more money. If you want to get into the larger things, start paying attention. Zero hedge. For everybody out there, if you don't know what zero hedge is, it's just zerohedge.com. It's an economics-based like online news source. It gets a lot of heat because they're willing to tell the truth, and they're willing to ask tough questions. They'll talk about global events, warfare, drug smuggling, the P-files, all that kind of stuff. And they, but they come at it, a lot of their, their contributors, they're really focused on the markets and what's going on. And that's kind of a weird segue into one of the international things that are happening. So which is China. And I'll get to that. But before I do, and I apologize to everybody, I think we're all really angry and afraid, all the above, no one's buying anything. Everybody's like on edge trying to figure out what's going on. Who can afford to buy anything anyway, right? Nothing's gotten down. Okay, gas went down a bit. Great. But groceries haven't, rent hasn't, all these, inflation hasn't. Oh, but we're doing tariffs. That'll work if we have a game plan and if we can, legislate that and codify it into law, because that's going to take years to compel that industry to come back to America. Instead, little old me. So I just had another accounting requirement that costs little old me money that I don't have. And then on top of it, those tariffs, I use the Austria Alpine Cobra buckle. It's very compliant. It's the best buckle currently out there. There are a couple American companies, but no offense to anybody, but they're not as good as the Austria Alpine buckle. Where do you and because that came from overseas, it was tariffed. Guess who paid the tariffs? Not that company, not the North American distributor, me. All of that went back on me. I had to eat an additional $400 on top of every one of my orders. And then I have to make a decision. What do? I either eat it and I have limited profit, so I either eat it and that means I can't keep lights on, or I don't have, I guess I only get one egg a week, or I have to turn around and put it onto you, the consumer, who's going through the same stuff I am. This is all by design. This is part of this conditioning, this new world order. And we're just all sitting here, again, fighting over the scraps at Longshank's table. George, okay, I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna segue into the next part. Hey, have you even heard of what China did? I think it was Friday or Monday. What the
No,
announcement?
that's why I'm excited to hear.
Well, it's not really all that exciting. And it got buried immediately. China China always devalues its currency. That's their way of doing it, right? Because again, I'm not going to try to turn this into a financial, and I'm not saying I'm a big financial guy, but I pay attention to that. But that's their MO. They almost always devalue the currency. They're not doing that anymore. They just made an announcement that the yuan, they're trying to make the yuan, if you want to say it that way. I'm just going to say the yuan. They're trying to make the yuan a global currency to further compete with the US dollar. This is incredible, incredibly big news. Has anybody even heard that?
I haven't.
Like a declaration of war, in the financial world. That's like saying, yeah, we're coming for you. We're changing the new world order. It's not going to be a unipolar world anymore. It's a multipolar world. And we think we're the new big guy on the block. And we're going to make it so more countries want to use our currency for international trade, international markets. This is huge. It's unbelievably huge. Not a single person. I saw it once. And, matter of fact, here, I'll give a plug. The guy's name is RJ Talks. It's just Romeo Juliet. RJ must be his initial. RJ Talks. I've been following this guy for a little while now. He's got some pretty good, and he has a little bit, more of that financial, bigger picture kind of, perspective or background. That's why I kind of like some of his things. But yeah, I haven't even heard, there's only a small number of internet kind of people who I follow who even talk about these subjects and are paying attention to it. I haven't seen it on any of the mainstream media stuff that I look at. Not a single person's talking about it. It just happened.
Half of them are already owned by China anyway.
There you go. Yeah. And that's probably why you didn't hear about it, but that's the same thing, BRICS. So, bringing it back into the international, global specter, well, look what just happened in Panama, which should never have had to have happened to begin with, but it just did. And that's now creating, issues and ripples. Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, Canada, the UK, the EU. UK is not the EU. And man, but I don't know if that was a good or bad thing, and I know there's one or two people who watch this from the UK. Man, I don't know. I just don't know what you guys are going to do. I don't think there's any way you guys can vote your way out of this. You're going to either have to submit and then Big Brother really controls every aspect of your life. Speaking of which, they're proposing they want to do pre-crime. They want to do a trial pre-crime. They monitor everything you do. They think by using AI and and all the tools that they've developed in the last few years, that they can accurately predict that you are going to commit a crime. So they're going to come and arrest you preemptively for something you haven't even done yet. That's how dystopian a world we're living in right now.
Well, the thing is, when you get to that point, this is where, like, I would say this right here, where when you talk and that listens, every update that your phone gets, something else is put in there that you don't know about. That, hey, whether they're tracking your voice, tracking certain words that you're sitting there saying, and utilizing all your electronics, because nobody can live without them. They're like, oh, I gotta have my phone. I gotta have this. I mean, I don't know where I'm going. I remember when I used to deliver medical equipment, I had a fucking map of different parts of Virginia before I joined the military of where I was going. And if the map ended, I got the other map and opened them up together to see what road I was coming on to then go, this is where I'm heading to. There's so much to where, and this shows you, if a government is willing to start doing that, yeah, I get the New World Order, but I also get that's where you're scared. If you're getting to a point to where you're like, hey, this is what we need to do because we're afraid that these people are going to start getting a voice and they're going to start whipping our ass, and they'll start putting people in place that are going to make us go away and the country come back. And in reality, when stuff starts happening like that, to me, that's where David versus Goliath, and David would be the small people, should realize that the advantage is on our side. And if there's a time to come up with a plan, if there's a time to go, how can we strategically do this? And you don't have to be violent about it, but strategically think and go, okay, how do we circumvent this? What do we have to do to make sure that this doesn't happen? Because they are so afraid of what we can do. And the whole word we, when you start putting people together and you start taking away, I kind of make it like riot control. You see a whole bunch of people wanting to riot or protest. They all feel great. They all came together as individuals, but now they're, hey, we against them. And there's only a few people that are in back there going, hey, I need you a little bit louder. Hey, start pumping your chest. And they start listening to that. Well, you sit there and you realize, hey, that's the guy agitating the guys on the right. Get an arrest team in there, break the wall, grab that dude, pull him out. Guess what you don't have anymore? You don't have we. You have a bunch of individuals going, well, what are we supposed to do now? They're lost. Well, this is what government wants to do when they get to this point. Who are my strong people who are going to make everyone come together? Well, if I pluck them and go, hey, we think in a year you're going to do a crime, and you're like, what? You're guilty. We'll take you out of the crowd, and now there's no longer a team. It's a bunch of individuals, a bunch of sheep who go, okay, what do you want me to do next? And that's what they're doing. And it's unfortunate.
Well, I just want to say this. And if you've noticed, not a single person in this administration or the last administration or any administration, even prior, has really said anything about the Smith-Mundt Act. Your government right now has, let me rephrase it. There's no law prohibiting your government, if you're an American, from spying on you and propagandizing you. That you would have thought would have been the first thing, and Trump's not a Republican, and I don't even like saying that term because I just want conservatives. I don't care what you and I could disagree on a whole bunch of things, but how about we start on what we agree on? Hey, we need a new bridge. Okay, let's figure out how we can best do that. Hey, we're spending a lot of money overseas. Where can we cut some of those corners? Well, have we done anything for our inner cities, for our, needy, and a lot of charity, and that's where religion comes into place. And there's truth in that, and I probably would have more faith, and I don't mean it in that sense, but I would have more faith that a local church group could do a better job of helping police and deal with the homeless situation or, any similar example in their local community, vice any government entity. But that's not what we're being pushed towards, because the government, as George just said, the government doesn't want, and it never has given up any control it's ever obtained, ever. Somebody in the comments, in the chat or in the comments, show me an example where the government has freely given up a power that it assumed it took upon itself, possibly even, like infringing upon your constitutional rights or your big God-given rights. Show me an opportunity where an example where they've done it. And then I guarantee somewhere in there, it's because it was no longer of value to, if it's even happened, it only happened because it was no longer of value. Everything that's happening in our society, in our civilization right now, is of value to a group of individuals. Maybe you consider that nation states, maybe that's, the lizard people. Gene, that one was for you. But, whatever that thing is, it does exist because it's out here, and it's not even hiding itself anymore. Like all the things George just talked about. Just think about, again, finances. They're back into freedom of speech. We don't want freedom of speech unless it's us who are able to say negative things, or, we'll have the office of disinformation, misinformation, but that isn't going to apply to us. And we lie every day that there is no media in America anymore. It's the citizen journalist. It's the person talking to each other. And that, going back, that's why I made the comment of 230. That's not being addressed, because this, is George said, they can't have we talking to each other and we doing things. I saw a little clip from Jim Brewer, comedian, been in some funny, great roles in some funny movies, and he's an adult. He's got an opinion, he's got a right to the opinion as well. He had a great video up the other day saying, which I know it resonates with everybody. Just, none of us should pay taxes. Shut off the flow of the money. Now, the sad thing, unfortunately, that is, if you look at it, we don't even know where our taxes are going anyway, because if it was just our taxes that was running this government, why in the hell do we keep printing money? Devaluation, Trump even just came out and said it himself. He wants to see the housing market stay where it is. He's got his own financial logic behind it. And he wants to see the dollar continue, because these are the things that are going to be. So if our dollar continues going the direction it is, which is down, by the way, boys and girls, I'm sure you know that, because your dollar isn't worth $1 anymore, not even close. But what happens when the dollar becomes devalued? This is why China does it all the time. Then it's easier for the government to reduce or write off its debt, right? And these are just people like, oh, suddenly I'm not $500 in negative in my checking account. We'll just pretend none of that stuff happened, write it off, devalue everything, and start again. And now I can print another $500.
Yep.
And it's all by design. It's the CBDCs. Be on the lookout for that. We're back into free speech issues. We've got law enforcement that just doesn't even know the Constitution, doesn't even know where they fit within our grander legal scheme. We've got individuals. And so here's why I know, it doesn't matter. There's individuals, young and old, who think that you can't film them in public. They're only being filmed by 1 million other surveillance cameras that the city has in place. That's okay, because then we can do facial recognition and we can track you and see where you're going, right? Pre-crime it. But if I'm out there filming some exercising my First Amendment right, you get everybody freaking out. Somebody said, well, what would you do? Man, I'd buy that guy a beer. Oh, you want to come in and watch me actually, make gear? Come on in. Free advertising.
Oh, heck yeah.
But no, you can't do that. So again, the conditioning, the MK Ultra. Look, I'm sure everybody saw it, and we're getting near the close. Yeah, we got about 10 minutes left, and I really got to keep these to an hour just to do a solid to the guys and gals who are volunteering to come on here, and all you guys who are watching. So we're going to wrap it up here in a second, but I just want to add to it. And whenever we get closer to an issue starting to really get to the public level, look, here, I just realized an error of what I'm saying. Excuse me. Certain issues get to that public national level. We've got, again, I didn't even know the Olympics were going on. How far has the Olympics fallen? You don't even know when it's happening. I heard the Olympics were taking place because there was a story, and it was apparently a false story, but and JD Vance got booed at the Olympics. And I'm like, the Olympics? I'm looking around like, what the hell? The Olympics are going on. Now all I hear, and it's okay, this gets promulgated, is now it's all American Olympics, American athletes, not all of them. There's actually been one or two kind of cool stories I've heard of, but I've heard of entirely too many negative stories of athletes. I mean, if you want to talk about, and I don't know, I got to be careful there because that's maybe not true, but I would assume these people aren't really wanting for a whole lot, if you get what I'm getting at. And here they are on the international stage, bad-mouthing the country that they are supposed to be there representing. A guy who's a curling team, and America won curling in the last. I know that because some of those guys are from Minnesota. One of them's from Duluth. So So why is the curling team talking about ice operations?
Well,
Why are skiers, you know what I'm saying? It's like, so that will get a platform, but and they'll use 230, like George said earlier. Now I believe in the Constitution when I want to, have this right or carry a gun. But when you do it, you're not part of that class. And again, they want us to think it's a blue team, red team. No, I don't think so. I think it's people who are faith, family, friends, God and country, like those things that has to be destroyed. And that's what we're being pushed to. And the economics is going to play a huge role in it because everybody's going to be so ready to jump on board with some negative, unconstitutional action when they have more economic fears, economic, issues, economic worries, and then throw a little terrorism and, whatever ism, racism, transism, throw a bunch of that stuff in there and you get people to shut up and comply. Yeah. Because the government will come in and help you fix the problem that they created.
Well, I saw a thing right before we got on where JD Vance was asked right before he was getting on a plane, and he just basically said, "Look, you're there to represent the United States. You're there representing your country. Play your sport. Try to win your medal. You've been training your whole life for this, and leave politics out of it." That's and I think for where I've seen some of the hockey players when they tried to bait those guys, and again, I'll go back to hockey players because you know what? I've never met a hockey player that's a puss cake. They'll sit out there, they'll fight, the goalies will fight, they'll hit each other in the face with a stick. They don't give a damn. And you know what? They're not going to let some friggin' journalists try to twist them into answering a question about what's happening within the borders of the United States. Those hockey players are like, I'm here representing my country. I got selected to represent the United States of America, and I'm here to win a gold medal. And listening to some of this other skaters and stuff being like, I don't feel like blah, 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 blah. It's just like, even my wife, who doesn't like the Olympics because she's like, it's really not like it used to be when she was younger, is going, why are people sitting here talking about this instead of being like, how hard I had to work to get to this point? How much, I gave up as a kid, or how much I go to the gym and how much I work out, when people are just like, oh, those are things you should be talking about, because you should be inspiring other kids, younger people who are like, man, I want to be on a Wheaties box, or I want to be able to do this or do that. And we're sitting here talking about some dumb shit, excuse my language. But, again, this is where we have, they're athletes, but they are weak-minded because they are getting caught up in all this bull crap. And I say the same thing about the NBA players. When I'm sitting there watching Steve Kerr want to freaking shed a tear because somebody interfered with ice and they got punched in the face, and I'm just like, coach fucking basketball, dude. When your team is back to winning championships, feel free to talk about it. But you suck as a coach right now, so get better. In the words of Joey Swole, do better. But they can't look in the mirror because you know what? They want to deflect just like all these other friggin' assholes. And this is a problem.
Well, and they may have had a vacation on a certain island for all we know. I mean,
it could be.
We already have a government that's in violation of our own laws. And, and I saw a bunch of people today protesting ICE, in Duluth, and, they had a sign, arrest pedophile or pedophiles. See, because now the algorithm doesn't want you talking about it because they don't want people talking about it. But arrest pedophiles, not immigrants. I'm like, well, first off, that's not an immigrant, but and you're not smart enough to realize the logic, the logical fallacy. You're right. We should, if somebody is a pedophile, they should be arrested. Why is that? Because that's illegal. It's against the law. So is crossing into our country without permission. That is also, well, but no, and then to George's point, and then, all the whataboutisms and all the platitudes come in. Well, this is stolen land. How far back in history are you willing to go to find out are you going to go to Adam and Eve, the creation theory? Because it's stolen from Adam and Eve that, how far back do you go? Well, this was native so-and-so. Who did they steal it from? Well, they didn't. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. You smart ass, Oh, well, that's Mexico. Do you even know what you're talking about? What do you mean Mexico? How long was Mexico a country? And how did Mexico become a country? Stolen land. So, I can't steal land that somebody else stole from somebody else. I mean, what are you guys talking about? So, sorry, George.
No,
hey, we got a couple of comments here. Let's just read a couple comments, and we're at an hour, and then I'm going to give you the final comments, and then I'll do my last dad joke.
I hope it's a doozy.
What's that?
I said, I hope it's a doozy.
They're all doozies. They're all doozies, George. AVV, good to see you, sir. It was shocking to see a sheriff who doesn't know what. Yeah, that is crazy. Exactly. So my point earlier, shouldn't that person be immediately removed from office? If you don't even understand the legal framework and the legal obligations of your duty position, then you need remedial training, or you can't be in that duty position.
Exactly.
Sorry to use military kind of speak, but Al Franken, 28, was so corrupt. Yeah. Counted ballots out of a car trunk after election day. And there's another thing. I thought we were told this is all conspiracy, facts is what it is, and why are you boarding up, the ballot so the outside the public can't see what you're doing? Like, all of this stuff is right then and there in a sane world is grounds for immediate removal, immediate investigation. And, and to AVV's point, how many more examples do we need of individuals bringing in, water pipes breaking, or here's video of them dropping off multiple ballots, and, and then suddenly, everybody gets, it's time to go home. And then only 3 people are in the room. And then all of a sudden, all these trunks come out full of, and they start counting ballots. Yeah, that's not enough. That's not enough. I mean, just look at the graph. There are always statistical anomalies, but just look at what happened in the Trump-Biden election. And again, could have been all by design to get us to this point right here. Maybe he did cross him because that he would have been dead. I mean, there's no way. And George is a very, very qualified precision marksmanship kind of guy. I don't care. Carlos Hathcock. Maybe he could. He'd be the only one. Oh, but it depends on what crayon he ate that day. But nobody can just shoot, an ear lobe, and not catch the cheek or the head. I mean, that's an incredible shot. That was just fate. He really did move his head. Otherwise, he would have been dead. So, yeah, but we can't talk about that. It's all nothing to see here, folks. Move on. Al Franken, but that's it. Elections, what's going on? But we all could have been set up to get us to this situation where now we're all all these mega people. Oh, I'm on the red team. Man, no one gives a shit about what color jersey you're wearing. They don't care about you. We're all being played. Big Visk in the house, said he's late, but you're here. Gotta love it. Thank you, Big Visk. Gene, hopefully need to rise up like Wolverines. When that happens, I will disappear off the grid. Well, stay tuned, my good man. I'm still debating what I'm going to do on some courses regarding that kind of stuff. But that is something everybody should be thinking of. What are you going to do when? Because it isn't a matter of if it's going to happen. It's going to be a matter of when. We're just in that terrorism cycle now. It's not if we're going to be hit by terrorists. It's when we're going to be hit by terrorists. That's where we are, in my opinion, in this new order right now. And then Gene saying, it's not it's we, the people. Yeah, exactly. I love this Big Vis. We're from the government and we're here to help. Yeah. B Seep. Nice to see you, B Seep. Last time the government gave up anything was because of the Revolutionary War. I saw that earlier. Yeah, that's the last time any government in America gave up anything. And B Seep. And they didn't give it up freely. We had to rip that shit out of them. But win medals, not votes. Get out of sports. You know what? I'm going to watch Miracle tonight. Because that was to George's point. And I grew up in Minnesota. We make jokes that our area code 218, that's 218 hockey, we call it. Like we're really proud of like our hockey up here, and we've had great names in the hockey world tradition, come from our part of Minnesota. And, in Michigan, North Dakota, I know there'll be one or two other states. Don't yell at me. You guys got some good hockey players too. East Coast, maybe Boston, up Mass. But to the whole point, yeah, I'm going to watch Miracle because that's, and there's a line from Jimmy Carter, and they played Jimmy Carter's radio address. And, as much as Jimmy Carter like really screwed a lot of things up, that comment he made was pretty damn good. I'm going to watch that movie tonight. Win medals. And that's it. Win medals. Yep. Be SEEP again. The Olympics lost my interest when they allowed professionals to play. Yep. Amen. Same thing. Yep. Because then you wouldn't have had the Miracle. You wouldn't have had the 80 team, right? You had the dream team, and half of those things were nightmares, which are dreams. That's reserved for the Soviets. And and there you just mentioned it. And our amateurs took them in the 80s. And I don't care if we can only do it once every 10 Olympics. Let the amateurs get out there and have that. What is that old ABC Wide World of Sports? The joy of victory and the agony of defeat. There's something to be said for that.
Yeah, that's friggin' Howard Cosell right there.
Yeah.
Boom.
ABB. Everything is political. Everything. Yeah, he says, I don't know if the country would cheer if we had a repeat of that. Look, I don't know how many people would even know we just had it. And again, there's none of those things that are bringing us together. That's what it was. We were all being brought together. And just like today, back then, that was the height of the Cold War. There was all kinds of things that we were scared of and that was going on in the world. That was a threat to us. Thermonuclear Armageddon, pretty big deal, right? So all this stuff going on, but we managed to still be Americans. And I think that's what evil has done a really good job of. We're not Americans. Now it's me, my team, my flag, my this, me. Last comment, a bunch of people got laid off by a periodical. I think it was the Post. They got fired. They're out in front of it protesting, thinking they're going to go back in and just keep working. You've been terminated, man. No, but it's our job. It's our right to these jobs. No, it's not your right to that job, man. Mark Spitz for athlete. And then we got AVVs agreeing with BSIP. All right. I think that brings us caught up on. I don't think I skipped anybody. I apologize if I did. I'm kind of rushing. We're already kind of looking at an hour 15. Going to have to figure out how to do a better job to get it back down to 60. But George, let's come back over to you. I'm just going to open the floor up to you for a couple minutes. Then I'll end it with my closing comment, and then which is going to be really short, just talking about the next episode, and then the final dad joke. And do you have that thing on your phone? Are you still ready for?
Oh, believe me, I have it lined up, ready, ready for your little dad joke. It's the same as everything. One, if you are the alpha in your family, you're the AIC. And if you don't know what the AIC, that's the agent in charge. You're the one there to protect your family. Just always remember, you got to be strong, and not just on the outside, but on the inside. Make sure your brain's good. Make sure your heart's good. Your emotions are good. If you need a little bit of downtime to break off, go for a walk, put your phone down, do something smart, read, whatever it might take. You're only going to be as good as you can be when you look in that mirror. And I tell this, my daughter is in her little school right now to become a staff sergeant and, platoon sergeant, I'm sorry. And I tell her, at the end of the day, you got to look in the mirror. If you didn't put everything out on the line, you have no one to complain about except for yourself. And everybody should be able to do that. If you know you gave everything that you had, no matter what, if it's work, if it's being a husband, it's being a dad, it's preparing, making yourself better. You look in that mirror and you see that, and I gave everything I fucking had today. You can't be mad at yourself. But if you sit there and say, you know what, I was slack, and you can justify it however you want to. My suggestion to that, because this is what I do to myself, because I have slack days too, is I better make up for it tomorrow. We're human beings. We're going to wear ourselves down, and just if you got 80% in the tank, give all 80%, because it's hard to give 100% every single day. But if you can give what you have in your tank, man, you're going to be successful every single day. And God bless, and I appreciate everybody spending a little bit of time with us.
I'm going to ask you a question loud and throw this out to the chat. And then if you watch it, leave a comment, in the comments, tell me what you think. George should, because now we've done 2 episodes. We still really haven't addressed the international events, right? And, we've got a massive military buildup going on right now. Again, I've mentioned some of the countries that, we've kind of made, implied or overt threats towards, or, I basically said, here's what we're doing. And some of it, again, we could argue from geopolitical or national strategic type of perspectives, you don't want nuclear missiles in Cuba, going back to that. But so those type of events are taking place today. So Canada has suspended air travel into Cuba. The Russians just suspended air travel into Cuba. They're trying to get Russian citizens out of Cuba. It's not, and everybody's claiming it has more to do with economic collapse and economic issues as opposed to any type of military operation. But that's barely getting covered, and that's not normal. Something is going on there, and we do have a huge buildup of air transport assets. So there's a variety of strategic and theater type of, fixed-winged aircraft. Like, so imagine a C-130. That is a cargo and troop aircraft, but that's more your theater aircraft. Its range is limited, right? Whereas a C-5 Galaxy, well, in a C-132, a KC-130 or a correction, on the mission side, they can have refueling capabilities, and that extends it, their range, obviously. But you see what I'm saying. But a C-5 Globemaster is called a Globemaster for a reason. Air Force people, if the C-5 isn't the Globemaster and that's something else, I apologize. You can throw me under the bus. I'm a dirty smelling grunt, but whatever. The C-5 the range on that aircraft is immense, and its cargo carrying capacity is incredible. So what's going on with all that? No one's talking about Iran, and why is it that the left in America didn't get aboard with the anti-government protests going on in Iran? Ask yourself that. Like, shouldn't that have been just like we were wearing keffiyehs and talk about free Palestine? Well, okay, what about Iran? Why isn't that? Why does that? So there's all kinds of things at the, not just the domestic. And I think we've covered domestic. So 2-part. Let us know if you think we've covered the domestic, or if we need to point out the more obvious things. And should we do a 3rd part and we really only focus on those issues? Because to me, I would just break it down to Europe, Asia, and then the American sphere of influence, or the decline of the American sphere of influence and what that entails. But we are rubbing up in conflict zones. Venezuela just happened, and we've already moved on and moved past it. Do you think Venezuela is stable right now? What would it be like to live in Venezuela? We'd be all in here pulling shifts. Okay, 2 on, 2 2 people are on duty for 2, not one person, because you can fall asleep. I need 2 people on duty, because Lord only knows what's going on in their society right now. Mm-hmm. They don't even, who's the government? What is the government? And that's, the second and third order of effects whenever there's, a conflict. George and I both know firsthand, being in those places where we've seen that happen, and everybody just then moves on and fails to talk about it. Okay, well, what deleterious, negative consequences are there now that we've destroyed the infrastructure or destroyed this police force or whatever the thing is? We don't ever talk about that. So that's my question. Did we cover the domestic issues enough? That's 1. And 2, should we do a part 3, and we should focus on the international side, because George and I both have, and George, look, boys and girls, George has been overseas in some places much more recently. Somebody says, hey, what was it like in the agency? Man, that was 13 years ago. For me, I can tell you what it was like when I have no idea what it's like there now. It's the same thing. The moment you leave theater and you come back CONUS, back stateside, you can talk about your time there, but that area of operations has already changed. There's new players, there's all kinds of stuff going on. George has got some pretty modern, up to date kind of like, commentary he could bring in if he's willing to share it. So let us know. Part 3 and focus on international, and or do we do a separate episode some other time? Like, did we beat the domestic side to death? It's so hard to cover all this. Again, I'm trying to be fast. We're already at an hour and 15. We didn't even come close. Again, I've got all these tabs up here, so here, Ilhan Omar, just another Ilhan Omar. That was on my shit list today. She makes a comment. She makes an accusation about President Trump, calls him a PDF file, and then follows it up with and this is a public speech by a government official, follows it up with, in my home, she doesn't say America. She references Somalia, because it's still, that's where her beliefs are. That's where her patriotism is. That's where her loyalty is. She said it multiple times. I'm not making up. Listen to her. So she says, hey, the current president is a PDF file. And in my country, we kill PDF files. Welcome to the new order.
If that's the case, why is she not voting to kill all the PDF files in her state that she represents?
Because that's what they want. This is just the breads and circus, So, all right. Hey, we had a couple people comment. AVV, important for a warrior to know when to need someone else to pull watch every now and then. Damn right. What is that whole thing? And it's a ripoff from Firefly, the series, not the movie. When you can't run, walk. When you can't run, walk, crawl. When you can't crawl, And then at the end, when you can't do that, you ask somebody to carry you. I mean, you have to. And that's, you're absolutely right. Somebody else has got to pull watch. Somebody else has got to carry you. Somebody else. You need a team. That's my takeaway from that. Like when George was talking about it, George, I guess I shouldn't speak to you, but you need a team, man. You can't do it by yourself.
Yeah. It's me and my wife, even though I am in charge and she knows it.
And we just know that was a dad joke right there, because we know that's a lie, right? He is happily married, so you married guys know what I'm talking about. Gene just said triple X with a mic drop. That was only a few minutes ago, so something you were just saying, probably in your diatribe. And then learn me something saying we need a part 3. Yeah, so you guys, I think we're wrapping up. So leave a comment afterwards. George, so what do you think? Because you're the one who's given up your time as well. Should we do a part 3 and then but seriously, we start off internationally and that's what we do the whole hour.
I'm down with that. Next Wednesday.
Okay. There it is, boys and girls. You heard it from Triple X, the man himself. Next Wednesday.
I'll send you my routing number and account number. No big deal.
You know what? I'm just going to give you another dad joke instead. How about that?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go, boys and girls. Another dad joke. Again, you need this. You can't do it. And this is Steve. So again, hats off to you, sir. He shared a ton of jokes with me. And all right, I did the French fry. Here we go. This is the again, they're just dumb. Hey, George, I had to go see the doctor the other day, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. I went and saw my doctor and I told him I was going deaf.
And
I just screwed up the joke. I was trying to be too funny. My doctor told me I was going deaf. That was hard to hear. That's the joke. My doctor told me I was going deaf. That was hard to hear.
That deserved 2 rim shots because it was so retarded.
Come on. Do it again. Do it again. One more. Take us out on a rim shot. All right. Hey, seriously, everybody,
make the
big
font
hats
bigger on your phone. That way you can go line by line.
Well, see, I was trying to ad lib it, and try to make it me and you, and I screwed it up. I'll rehearse them next time. How about that?
Oh, shit.
All right, everybody. Big thanks to George, as always, for being on. And you just heard it. We're going to do a part 3. We'll be back here next Wednesday, same bat channel, same bat time. And we will just jump right into it, and we will focus on the international aspects of the new order. We won't talk the domestic. I mean, there's some domestic related thing, take Hungary, for example. Well, there might be some domestic related issues that are transpiring inside of Hungary that are of interest on the global, scale, or, on the geopolitical scale. And I'm being very serious. I can think of a couple right now, but so we might do a little of that, but we'll focus on these deployments, on these hotspots, these conflicts, hopefully George will share a little bit of his experiences, more recent experiences. We can, and if you're a veteran, if you ever deployed, and I said it in the one time before, hey, just because you visited Paris, France, and that was the joke. Well, hang on, maybe that's different, but no, I'm talking about people, living there, really being immersed in those societies and experiencing it and seeing, the things of beauty and the things of horror. So I think that's what we'll do next time, the New World Order, because this is not just a domestic thing. It's part of a global, operation, a global effort. Because evil can do everything. It can attack the individual and it can attack the group all at the same time. Evil's not, one dimensional, right? So that's it. And then Lermy something said, all right, okay, I got to just do this real quickly. So Husky Bunch said, good night all. Thanks, Husky Bunch. I know you're here. AVV said, good shows, guys. But here's my favorite, Gene. Mark, don't give up the day job.
Oh shit! I should have had it up on my phone. That's the best dad joke there.
Yeah, that is, and that should have been, another one. So, learn me something. Ready for more Georgisms and Greg Harriman. Good show. Have a great night. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here, George. Anything?
You guys stay safe. Have a great week, and we'll see you next one.
All right, we'll see everybody next Wednesday. If you got questions, comments, holler. Please do like, share, subscribe. You know the deal. It's true. Go out and leave a comment on a comment, all that happy joy. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next Wednesday, 1800 Central Time. Until then, maybe I need to come up with a different one, but I think it's fitting for this, my regular business one. Keep thinking, keep moving, and never quit. We'll see everybody next Wednesday. All right. Be good.